Hello, I'm Laurie Williamson, CEO of Agriculture for Life. In this edition of Nourishing Minds, we're talking ag technology, how technology and innovation is shaping the future of agriculture. Today, we are pleased to visit with Darryl Kay, Chief Executive Officer of the Agriculture Financial Services Corporation. Thanks, Darryl, for taking the time to meet with us today. We're super excited to talk about, AFSC, to learn more about the organization, but also to talk about tech and innovation. And so to get started, why don't you tell us a little bit about AFSC as an organization, and for some of our viewers and listeners that aren't 100% sure what you do, why don't you give us a little overview?
Sure. Good morning, and thank you for having me, give me the opportunity to speak about our organization. Happy to do that. So we're Agriculture Financial Services Corporation. We are a provincial crown corporation, and we have been around in some form or another in Alberta for over 80 years. We provide insurance products for farmers across the province. We have strong lending programs. We have some income stabilization programs. And so we're really that organization that provides that backstop for producers and wants to work closely with them to make sure that they feel that they have good programs and that they have good risk management tools for them to rely on so that they can focus on their operations and their business. And so we have a really important role to play in agriculture, and we have a head office that's located in Lacombe, and we also have 38 branch offices that are located throughout the province. And obviously things that have evolved a little bit over the last year with COVID and some of the challenges, but it's those branch offices where we have great opportunities to meet face to face with our producers and help them through some of the challenges that they face.
Yeah, for sure. Right in the heart of the ag community. I think that would be pretty important. Absolutely. Yeah. So around oh yeah, as you say, over 80 years. And I do, when I think of AFSC, obviously, very well, I think of financial services, I think of that support, and that'll be we'll do another interview one day, because I know a lot of our city listeners, if you will, are always wondering about insurance and what does that mean for farmers. And so
Right.
we'll get you back another day and talk about that, because I think that would be really interesting in how that all works.
Sure.
But today we're diving into the topic of tech and innovation. Now, again, in over 80 years, you've been sort of the heart, and you're in the rural communities throughout Alberta. Don't always think of innovation when it comes to AFSC. So what and where is that role? Where do you see AFSC's role when it comes to ag tech and innovation in Alberta?
Yeah, thank you for that question. And it's a fair point, especially as a government organization. You not necessarily feel like we're leading the way in innovation or cutting edge, but we have shifted our focus. We have a history of some successful programs through the years where we've been able to develop and respond to industry challenges. But really, when we think about our role, it starts with, I guess, our expertise and our knowledge of agriculture. Like I said earlier, we have been around a long time. We have some great relationships with producers. I think we have a pretty good read on some of the challenges that they face in trying to run their operation. And so that's something that I think we bring to the table. Now, when you talk about innovation, things are changing extremely quickly in agriculture right now. There are tech companies jumping up all over the place. We're not trying to do that. We're not trying to be one of these large tech companies. We understand our limitations, certainly limitations in budgets and people, and working in that crown corporation world. But I think what we can bring to the table is to partner with some of these organizations. And for us, it always comes back to the producer. What can we do to make sure that we have programs that work? So it's what we deliver. Are the programs working? Are they relevant? What can we do to make sure that they're innovative and they continue to evolve with producer needs? The second piece is really around how we deliver the programs. And again, there's a number of changes of technology, things like remote sensing, machine learning, where we're asking ourselves the questions, how do we look outside the box? And we've got a long history of delivering programs, often fairly manual processes. One of the things we often come back to is how can we make it easier for producers to deal with our organization? And that again is a focus of innovation. So again, we're not trying to lead the way and necessarily develop programs and products that through innovation, but we're trying to work with industry. We're trying to work with tech companies. It's those partnerships that I think are going to be the key. We have a long history with producers. We have a lot of information, a lot of data. If we can partner with these companies that have more significant research and development budgets and come up with solutions and let them know this is what our producers are facing, how can we solve their problems? That's where I think the AFSC has a really unique role to play.
Absolutely. You mentioned that data, and I find it fascinating because that's one of the conversations we've been having, and we get to meet with a lot of producers and a lot of organizations, and that data-driven solutions is one of the topics that comes up over and over again. We've seen so many advancements in tech, and we've got our phones and we've got all this information, but then what do we do with it?
Right.
And I think that's interesting as you're talking about, that's a role where you see your organization being able to sort of take a lead a little bit in helping to take that data and make it so that it's accessible and usable for
Right.
producers. Yeah.
And there's a couple components there for sure. And obviously we have to be extremely careful in how we use our data, and privacy comes into play. You talk about machine learning. We're just dipping our toe into that space now, I would say. But when you fast forward 5 to 10 years, I think that the opportunities are there for us to really change how we deliver our programs and how we set premiums, how we inspect and adjust claims. There's a lot of opportunities there, and the machine learning isn't necessarily designed to suggest we don't need our team members. We have so many great people across the province, but what it I think will show is that we can do things more efficiently, and we can free up capacity and time for our team members, especially out in the field, to be meeting with producers to talk about their operations. And so if we can harness that data and use it with machine learning and change how we do things, that's extremely important. And the other piece that's exciting to me, we talk often about farm management software. And if there's ways that we can integrate directly, we spend a lot of time, farmers spend a lot of time inputting information into systems. We input information into systems. Things are changing so rapidly. If we can integrate directly with farm machinery, you can bring that information directly into our systems. It's a whole new world from our perspective in terms of how quickly we can get payments to clients, how seamless we can make that working relationship with them. It really opens doors for us to completely change how we do business. And that's really exciting to me. So
It is. And I'm thinking, as you're talking, I'm thinking about all of the ways that all of that, that the tech can integrate all of that information and make life so much easier. Of course, once we get rural internet, a little plug, it's coming. Nobody panic. It's coming. But because I can hear it now. But
that's absolutely true.
But
And
once,
you make a great point. We've invested a lot in our online systems, but we also have to be aware that rural internet is a challenge, and I think they're making improvements, but we have to be very aware of that at the same time.
Yeah, for sure, right, and that's a good point, because we're developing, and we still have to be able to reach all of our producers across the province that maybe don't have high speed today. So there's got to be the best of both worlds. But what I find fascinating is again being able to use that information, connect that information, become more efficient. And as you talked about, it's not to replace our current workforce, but it actually opens the door for a new set of employees. At Ag for Life, we talk a lot about careers in agriculture, and that gets me excited for the next generation, the next mindset that they're born with phones in their hands, and
Yes.
They're going to be so savvy coming in. And so that should be exciting again for that next generation of our career opportunities for our Aggies. So that's also a positive when we start talking about this.
Yeah, I agree completely. And we talk a lot about, in our latest strategic plan, we've taken a much longer term vision. For the first time, we've developed a 5-year plan. And there's some key components on innovation and how it'll change what we do. But the other piece on that is people and preparing our workforce for the future. And so there's a few components to that. Number one is making sure that, you know, our team members are comfortable having those conversations. You know, as we evolve from necessarily transactional or taking a land report and going back and entering it into the system, as computers and systems take some of that work away, we're really looking for those team members to take that next level and sit down with a producer, whether it's in an office or even at their farm, to say, tell me a bit about your operation. Let me share what we have at AFSC and how we can help manage risk. And we've developed a pretty cool tool internally called the Client Roadmap, which lays out in a really easy to digest format on our system their operation, and there's the history over the last number of years, how our programs have responded, and how some of our other programs could have responded had they used them. So that's number one, is really making sure our staff feel comfortable having that conversation and you know, digging in a bit in terms of a producer's operation. But the other piece you touched on is an interesting one as well, is the tech side. And you know, one of the things we've done this summer for the first time is we have a few data science summer students, and we've never gone down that path before. But it's a really exciting way for us to bring someone in that's you know, in school right now and taking some of these courses to help us evolve and change our conversation about how we use remote sensing and satellite information, how we use drones in the field, what can we do with modeling, machine learning. You know, we don't have a lot of that expertise in-house. So we're going to get that through partnerships, but we can also get that through, you know, working with academic institutions like Olds College, who are very focused on innovation, and bringing in summer students. So that's an exciting change for us. And again, it speaks to what are those key resources you're going to need 5 years from now, and what are we doing to develop them? So it's really cool. I'm excited that we were able to find some people to bring into the organization.
That's fun, yeah, because they're getting the hands-on learning, and they're teaching you guys as well. You know,
That's exactly it.
right?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
you know, we've talked about how we can partner with someone like Olds College. Can we throw a few of the challenges we have, give them a project in their classrooms, and let them come up with some solutions and harness some of their knowledge and their expertise. So again, just trying to think a little differently. And partnering with some institutions like that and then it's a win-win. You know, I think they appreciate the opportunity to work with an organization like AFSC that has a long history in agriculture, and we certainly appreciate the opportunity to harness some of that expertise. So it's a great partnership.
I love it. Yeah, from an organization of Ag for Life that educates youth, and we're excited to educate youth about agriculture. That's super exciting. So you talked a little bit, Darryl, about partnerships, and I think as you're talking, it's partnerships are going to become more and more important to AFSC and collaborations as you start to move down this innovative path. You talked a little bit about perhaps Olds College or post-secondaries. Are there other examples of partnerships that you can give us that, you know, are sort of, you know, maybe in the works, or they're sort of future thinking a little bit?
Sure. There's a number of things I think we have on the go. I'd start with machine learning. You know, we're working with a company based out of Edmonton, and initial stages yet, just like I said, kind of dipping our toe into that space to try to understand how we can use, you know, artificial intelligence, machine learning to change how we do things. We're having conversations with other tech companies, trying to understand one of the major challenges we face is around claims adjusting. You know, we're very focused on turnaround times. That's the one area where clients, you know, producers are really anxious when they have a hailstorm, and especially if it's later in the season and they're trying to get in the field and harvest, and they need that inspection done. And so using some of those tech companies, using some of that remote sensing technology to better understand where the storms are, deploy our resources in a different way, use a risk-based approach to pay some of those claims. So that's some of the partnerships we're focusing on. We've developed a group over the last 6 months, and we've called it Assembly 360. And we've invited some people from industry and from tech, some leading, you know, very progressive, innovative producers into that group. And it's been fascinating discussions on you know, in an hour or two, of some of the ideas that get thrown out. And again, this is an opportunity for us to deal with some people from outside the organization. I'll be honest, we have, you know, somewhat limited resources in our innovation group. And so we have to tap into that. And so great chance for us to throw out some of the ideas that we've been looking at. ground truth some of those. Would this work for your operation? What are you seeing out there from a technology and from an innovation perspective? Really helps us to kind of fine tune and narrow down what we want to focus on. With so much coming at us, so many changes in technology, we can't do everything. We can't, so we're really trying to be selective and focus on those things that will, I think, provide the most value. Again, comes back to producers. What can we do to make their life easier? And so Assembly 360 is an exciting group, and some of the ideas that are flowing through there are fantastic. So it's really, really great. The other piece I'd like to mention from a partnership perspective is we have great relationships with what I'd call our sister organizations in Saskatchewan, Manitoba. So Saskatchewan Crop and Manitoba Agriculture Financial Services. And so the challenges that we face around resourcing, around budgets, they're facing the same things. So again, they're also seeing the same challenges with their producers. And so a great opportunity to work with them. We have an innovation meeting on a regular basis. What are you guys working on? How can we help? So you're pooling some resources, you're sharing ideas, you're sharing results, you're sharing data. And that, I think, is going to benefit producers across all three provinces, because we have this great opportunity to rely on them as well. We can't do everything ourselves, we know that. And so so that's another example, I think, of a partnership that's really going to pay dividends for AFSC and for ultimately for producers, which is what we want to focus on.
For sure. And I think that's great because, agriculture, through the years, everybody works in silos, they do their own thing and nobody talks to anybody. And I've seen this big change over the last number of years that, hey, those walls are being broken down and organizations are working together, provinces are working together, we're getting producers involved. And that's fantastic. I mean, that can only make the industry stronger. And you've mentioned, one of the limitations, of course, resources, financial resources, all of this is expensive. And so, if everybody takes a bite-sized piece and shares and builds upon it, we'll get there that much faster.
That's exactly right. And that's the reality we find ourselves in. We're a Crown corporation. We have to be fiscally responsible. But I always like to take that long-term view. If we can find efficiencies, if we change the way we do things, it will result in savings as well for the government, for taxpayers, which is important. But more importantly, I think it's going to change how producers view us and how they work with us. Again, making it easier for them and making that process AFSC more seamless. And we're going to get through that through partnerships and relying on other resources. And without it, I think you're looking at a pretty long window in terms of what we can develop and how we can work on things. And in this environment where things are changing so rapidly, we'll be left behind. And we know that, and we've seen that in the past. And so you're right. It's about outreach. We have to talk to producers. We have to talk to tech companies. We meet a lot with industry groups. Who are great at gathering feedback from their commodity groups. Very helpful in terms of us understanding what's happening out there and what producers are looking for. So it is an exciting time. There's a lot of change, and if we can find a way to do it and advance without recognizing that we don't have significant budgets to spend, then it's going to mean a lot to producers at the end of the day.
I think so. And it sounds exciting. As you say, it's changing so quickly. You've come into the organization, you've got your, that strategic plan. So where do you see AFSC going in the future?
Yeah, good question. I think, again, I think we have some excitement building in our innovation group. For the first time about a year ago, we did actually look at some dedicated staff. I think the big shift from that perspective is we had people in our organization looking at some of these things in the past, but ultimately they often got pulled into the day-to-day, and there's an issue with a program or with something and taking away from that long-term vision. So really where I see us heading is using those resources to focus on less incremental change and more transformative change. So where will we be in 5 to 10 years? That's the exciting question. And it starts with things like machine learning. It starts with things like farm integration, farm management integration. So if we start tapping into some of that data off a combine directly into our systems, then that changes dramatically how we work with producers. And so there's some of those really big ticket items that we are looking at, and it's not going to happen overnight. We realize that, but that's really where I see the big wins when we fast forward 3 or 4 years. And so we've had some really good success when we look back at AFSC, some of the programs we've developed, and but I've never seen the technology side at such a stage where things are changing every day and we get new ideas thrown at us. And so that's the really, really exciting piece. So when I look 5 to 10 years out, it's exciting to think about how it could look. And so again, less about incremental change and more about transformative change.
Love it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking time to speak with us today. We'll be excited to watch for the change and the evolution as we roll over the coming years. And again, thank you for taking the time to speak with us today.
Really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you so much.